Hello, friends. Welcome to Shakti Power, where spirituality, Shakti-led sexuality, and personal growth meet. Shambhala Tantra creates a sacred space for this to happen. Today, I am welcoming Kirby, my business partner and co-founder of Shambhala Tantra. He has been teaching Tantra since 1991, and he has a big toolbox of modern Tantra tools for our awakening process. Welcome, Kirby.
Hello there.
Hello. Tell us more about Tantra.
Yeah. So, it just occurs to me, I think I'll start with a story about Namkhai Norbu. So Namkhai Norbu is one of the major teachers that have come out of Tibet. And I was in a seminar with him. And in that seminar, he tells a story about what Tantra is himself. And he tells a story in that shows us, for me, shows the real nature of Tantra. So picture yourself, you're at your altar, you're going through your mantra, you've done your exercises, everything is, moving along well, and the doorbell rings. Okay, so you put your mala down and you've been interrupted, and now you go up and you answer the door. That's when Tantra starts, right there. Tantra is about
when we're off the mat. We're like, when we do yoga, like what's really where the rubber really meets the road is when we get off the mat and how we treat each other and how we treat ourselves.
Exactly. Tantra is applying spiritual practice during the day. And so when you think about it, what's included? Well, what is included in our life? We wake up, we want a moment to clarify this day and where we are. We have a partner. We want to make sure that that person knows that they're appreciated, that they have our attention. We may have children. What are their interests? Where do they want to go? We drive. How can we drive in such a way that we feel connected with the others on the road, so that when somebody who completely unthinking cuts in front of us, we recognize, oh, they're simply caught up in their own universe and they don't recognize the rest of the world around them, and so forth. So that is why Tantra includes everything. And sexuality is part of that everything. When you think about the big things in our life, what is really big? Well, we can start with sex and death. Those are pretty big. And so if we tackle those, and if we really understand our relationship to the bigger items in our life, we understand our relationship to ourselves, and we understand our relationship to all the living things in the world.
That's really beautiful. And I know that some of my most spiritual experiences are when I am having sex or having a very intimate experience. It's kind of a feeling of oneness that we don't necessarily get when we, go about the day, or we're not in that same place. That creates a whole different level of connectedness.
That's correct. And, intriguingly, I also do Jyotish or astrology. And in that, the seventh house is opposite the rising sign, and that's the house of the partner. Why is it that way? It's because we must set ourselves, as in sunset, a little bit in order to make room for other significant people. When we take a look at sexual pleasure, that's in the 12th house, which is in the final house of the chart. And so it's the most mature, and it's also the first step before we exit this world and we transition to another. So the connection that we have with another person is in part a recognition that we are only part of something greater. And once we truly feel and see that, then it becomes big, and then it becomes real. So how do we prepare? We prepare by truly connecting within ourselves. So no part of us is estranged. So we are completely accepting. In fact, we're not even thinking about judgment. We're being present with everything that we have. Then when we open up to another, the opening is pure, clear, and enlightening.
That's really, really beautiful. It's like we see the divine in ourselves, and then we can see more of the divine in our partner. And the goal of Tantra is really to see the divinity in yourself, others, and all things around you, every moment, every second, in the present moment.
Exactly. And in that present moment, if we have that, if we can get to that point, that feeling, some of the names for that are the ocean of bliss, which describes it pretty well. Because what it feels like when it's happening to us, it feels like we are completely woven into the entire world that is filled with light. That's better than going to the movies.
It sounds good to me. Sign me up for that. Whoa, I love it. So you talk about Shaktiism and feminine-led sexuality. Why is this something that's important for modern day?
I think it's particularly important, and thank you for that question. Yes, thank you. Okay, so the idea of Shaktism is the focus is on what is alive, what is living, the life force, the thing that animates us and that permeates all the living things in the world. And it is seen through that viewpoint that women are a little bit more in touch with that than men. How can that be? Men are really good at constructing things, including constructing a view of the world. And so they're often intellectual, and the phrase goes in their head, which is not a bad thing. It's just for our time, there have been too much emphasis on male traits for a very long time. And the male traits that get us in trouble are the desire to acquire territory, the desire to dominate, the desire to capture the world in intellectual constructs rather than recognize the world, and a wide range of activities like that. When you take a look at cross-culturally, you'll find that women are a little bit more involved in communicating, in nurturing, in establishing connective groups, in seeing their relationship to others. These are the kinds of things that we need in our time. We have run out of planet. We're rapidly running out of resources. And so what we need to do is we need to start cultivating our relationship with the world rather than dictating our relationship with the world.
That's really, really beautiful. And it's something that we need to work on. It's not just going to happen, and work on it together as well.
Excellent. Yeah. And thank you for that. So when we work on something together, it is best when we fully recognize each other, when we truly acknowledge the depth and beauty of each other's presence, because simply in becoming aware of that, we become aware of the reflection in ourselves. And so this is not something that you can do as, say, like going to the movies or going to a weekend seminar and saying, wow, that was really fun. Because you go back to work, you go back to your ordinary day, you go back to everything that you've been through, and the excitement wears away, and it becomes difficult to apply it. So in order to approach this, we must transform. And that's one of the key principles of tantric practice. We recognize that we are on the path. We want to go further on the path. And so what we do is we do practices so that we can shift who we are into a place that recognizes the world in a deeper way. And we start by doing that within ourselves, noticing within our own feelings and experience and thoughts how we're changing. And then we see the world is changing as well.
I love it. And, I being a relationship coach and talking to people, I find that a lot of people, sometimes, especially men, they feel like feminism has something to do with fighting against men or being against men, when I experience it as more of just recognizing that women are equal, and that's it. But there's just such a perception around that construct because there's feminists out there that have that energy. How do you think how can we overcome that as a culture?
The Zen master Suzuki Roshi once was asked, well, what is Zen? How does it work? And Roshi simply said, and I won't try to do the same thing, but he said a loud sound, which completely shocked me. But then he said, "You have embraced my awe." Zen is about embrace. And
Mm,
so for me, women know more about the qualities of embrace and the qualities of
mm,
taking something in rather than
mm,
challenging things and trying to dominate. And so
mm,
when we see women, I mean, this is, and I just, men are not bad. It's been a very effective approach for defending our borders. And that's really what I'm going to go into that for a moment. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. So there was a time when there was a lot of room for people. We didn't have to worry about our territories so much. There was plenty, so on and so forth. And at that time, we celebrated the aliveness of the world around us. But after our population increased, pretty soon we ran into shortages. We started defending our territories. Men are a little bit better at 24/7 defense and things like that. They become better at domination. Those tribes or those pods of people which were good at domination ended up taking over the ones that were not. And even to the point where 5,000 years ago, there was a tremendous displacement of people throughout Europe, England, and so forth from people in the steppe. And this was before Genghis Khan. And so these things have come to dominate, but we have simply run out of space. We can't do that. We can no longer defend our borders. We can no longer go into sort of the nationalistic approach of things or the I'm right, you're wrong approach for things. We have to embrace. We have to listen more than
mm,
speak. We have to
mm.
understand that we really are connected and we seek feeling those connections. So tantric practices, the core of tantric practices that are powerful for me are the ones that help me recognize how connected I am.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that in the new world, it's like having conversations like we are, not to fight or to say you're wrong and I'm right and I'm the queen of the hill, if you whatever, versus you speaking your truth, I'm speaking my truth, and we're coming to understand each other more, and that we belong to each other. It's beautiful. So I have another question that this is what we're going to focus on in our class this week. And that is, what is pure presence? Because we're really talking about being present in the moment. How does that feel, and how do we cultivate that more?
You've asked that question in the perfect way. How does it feel? Not what ideas do I have about it.
Mm,
Uh, and as an example, I'll use a technique called witness consciousness. So very often witness consciousness is taught as watch your thoughts go by. Well,
mm,
that separates the watcher from the thoughts. Or watch your experience. That separates the watcher from the experience. And this truly is about embrace. You watch by completely absorbing that moment within yourself, and you do that through feeling. So the word seeing, when we look at things, we look at borders, transitions in state and color and things like that. And all those can be terms of separation. So what we want to do is feel our practices. We want to
mm,
feel the presence of each other. As a matter of fact, some of the early Southern Tantric practices were centered around the idea of rasa, or taste.
mm,
And so we want these intimate approaches, the approaches where we feel like we're part of what we're doing and the people around us.
mm. I love it. I was doing that today just when walking the dog. Like it was a little bit foggy, and I was feeling sort of
Huh?
the moistness in the air, and I was feeling the air brushing against my body, kind of cool, thinking of it as the breath of the goddess or my higher power, smelling, the plants around me. And that's actually the inquiry for the week, is for our class, is what does pure presence feel like to you? And we're going to be offering classes for the public so we can modernize Tantra. And we'll be back to talk more about Shakti power. Thanks for joining us today, Kirby.
It's been an absolute blast.
All right, we'll see you in the toy box. We'll see you. We'll be playing soon.
Okay, great.
tools and the modern tools in the toy box. All right.
Thank you again. This has been a real treat.